What's happening, everybody? It's me again, Golden Blue Dude, and if you're a college football or a college basketball fan, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. And if you get a chance, please share this video. I promise you, if you like this content, somebody else is going to like it as well. We also have a bunch of other things going on. We have a TikTok channel. We have a great website. Go check that out. We have a Patreon page, which if you are a member of the Patreon page, you'll actually get a discount on the merchandise store, which was the next thing I was going to mention. And finally, you can support Golden Blue Dude through PayPal. I'll leave all those links in the description of this video. You know, I talk West Virginia football a lot and West Virginia basketball, and I talk about sports in general, college football and college basketball. But what I want to do now is I want to start focusing on specific teams. And I do predictions and previews 2 to 3 months before the season starts. But I want to roll that back a little bit and look at what's going on in each specific program. And today I wanted to start off with the Oklahoma Sooners. They're in a big transition period. We all know Lincoln Riley, he moved and went to USC. Then, of course, Oklahoma went and got their former defensive coordinator, Brent Venables, and he's now their head coach. And I like that pickup. I think that was a home run hire by Oklahoma. So right off the bat, 100%, I'm not worried about Oklahoma's defense. Brent Venables, he'll have that ready to go on day one. I promise you that. Look at what he did at Clemson. So it's really the offense that I wanted to focus on today for Oklahoma. And Oklahoma did bring in offensive coordinator Jeff Lebby from Ole Miss. That's a great pickup as well. I like that move by Oklahoma. Last year, Ole Miss averaged 33.7 points per game. That's 24th in the nation. And they averaged 492 yards a game. That's almost 500 yards a game. That is amazing. And they averaged 6.3 yards a play. Honestly, how did they not have more wins than what they did? That is astounding. So I think the offense is in great hands with Jeff Lebby. What about the actual players? You know, we know that Caleb Williams, he transferred to USC, went over there with his good buddy Lincoln Riley. Then Spencer Rattler, he transferred over to South Carolina. Which, by the way, look out for South Carolina. And I'll talk about South Carolina later in the week. So the quarterback situation is in a state of flux. Definitely some new faces. Here's the crazy thing about Oklahoma right now. Their expectations for quarterbacks are through the roof. Right now, anybody in their right mind would be clamoring, foaming at the mouth to get either a Caleb Williams or a Spencer Rattler. But last year was actually a letdown year for the quarterbacks for the Oklahoma Sooners. Because you got to realize they're used to, you know, Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield, Jalen Hurts. 2 out of those 3 won the Heisman Trophy, and the third one was in the Heisman Trophy hunt. So the expectations through the roof. There for a minute, they were looking at Chuba Purdy, 4-star recruit, great prospect, but he went over to Florida State. And they were also looking at Jackson Dart, and Oklahoma didn't make his top 3, but Jackson Dart eventually went to Ole Miss. So that leaves quarterback Micah Bowers, the 3-star recruit, transfer from Penn State. He's got some potential, but he's not the highest on my list. I think this comes down to 2 quarterbacks. The first one is going to be the true freshman, the 4-star recruit, Nick Evers. And even though he's going to be a true freshman, this guy really excites me. And I think he fits the profile of an Oklahoma quarterback. I even think he has the look of an Oklahoma quarterback. He just has that look to me. So it's going to be a battle between him and incoming quarterback Dillon Gabriel from UCF. Outstanding quarterback. He's had a little bit of an injury issue, so he had a letdown year last year. 70 for 102, 68.6%. That's 814 yards, 9 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. But we see his potential from 2019 and 2020. I try to look at the overall picture. You can't judge a picture based on 1 year. In 2019, he was 236 for 398. That's 59.3%. Threw for 3,653 yards, 29 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions. Then in 2020, he was 248 for 413. That's 60%. Threw for 3,570 yards, 32 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. So a lot of yards, a lot of touchdowns, low on the interceptions, but he does need to get that completion percentage up. That's the only thing that's a little iffy about Dillon Gabriel. But I think he has a chance to be an outstanding quarterback under Jeff Lebby. I will say I am a little bit concerned about the offensive line because last year they did not protect the quarterback very well. So if they want to keep Dillon Gabriel from getting injured, that offensive line has got to do a much better job of protecting the quarterback. They did great for run blocking, so they're good on that front, but they got to learn to protect the quarterback just a little bit more. So I'd be a little bit concerned about that if I were an Oklahoma fan. 3 of the 5 starting offensive linemen are back, including Antoine Harrison, Andrew Raym, and Robert Conjal. I think left guard's going to be locked down by McCade Mature. And there's a great right tackle battle going on between Bray Walker, Savion Byrd, and Wanya Morris. And I like Savion Byrd to come out of that battle. I also think he's going to have some great weapons. A lot of people think that Oklahoma's going to be kind of thin at wide receiver. I highly disagree with that. I think they're going to have a great starting rotation at least. Starting with wide receiver Marvin Mims. He's going to be the most experienced experienced wide receiver coming back. Last year, 32 receptions for 705 yards, 5 touchdowns, and he's going to make a great duo with wide receiver Theo Weiss. Last year, he was injured, but in 2020, he had 37 receptions for 530 yards and 4 touchdowns, and they were a great duo in 2020. So look for a repeat of that. And the thing that really excites me about Theo Weiss is his capabilities of providing a mismatch. His size is going to give Oklahoma some mismatches there on the outside, and if they slide him in the slot. I think he could actually create some bigger mismatches in the slot, but they'll probably use him more on the outside. He's a great route runner. Here's going to be your slot battle. Wide receiver Jalil Farooq, and I think they could also use him on the outside as well. Last year, just 4 receptions for 69 yards. Didn't get a lot of playing time, but he'll probably be a starting wide receiver this year. And also, don't forget about wide receiver Drake Stoops. He's probably going to be your go-to slot receiver. Last year, 16 receptions for 191 yards and 2 touchdowns. But I think that could end up being a 3-way battle between Theo Weiss, Jalil Farooq, and Drake Stoops for that slot receiver. But my anticipation is Theo Weiss will be on the outside. Jalil Farooq will probably be used on the outside and some in the slot, but the main go-to slot will be Drake Stoops. That's just my overall feeling with the wide receiver situation. It could turn out completely different. Who knows? You never know how spring ball is going to go. But that's my initial feeling for the wide receiver group for Oklahoma. Now, I'll make a different video on a different day about the running back situation. But I think Oklahoma is going to have a pretty good passing game with the expectations that Dillon Gabriel will probably win the starting quarterback position. But do not forget about Nick Evers. I think that dude right there is the future of Oklahoma. And they have a lot of options at wide receiver. They could move some people around. And that's a great option to have with Theo Weiss, capable of providing some excellent opportunities with some mismatches for the defense. So let's take a look at Oklahoma's schedule real quick. Let's see how that sits up. Their out of conference isn't too bad, but it isn't too harsh as well. They get UTEP at home, then Kent State at home, then at Nebraska. Do not sleep on that game. I think Nebraska was one small step, but I couldn't put my finger on it, from being a very good team last year. They went 3-9, but all of their losses were by 1 possession, except for that Ohio State game, which was by 9 points. So only 1 point off from 1 possession. So Nebraska will be fully capable of upsetting Oklahoma next year. And who knows, Nebraska might actually end up being the favorite going into that game. You never know. After that, you get Kansas State at home, at TCU. Of course, you get Texas and Dallas. Then you get Kansas at home, bye week, at Iowa State, Baylor at home, at West Virginia, Oklahoma State, and at Texas Tech. So the 2 or 3 biggest games that I'm seeing as far as road games, at Nebraska, but that's out of conference. So your 2 biggest in-conference games on the road, at Iowa State and at West Virginia. And I know Oklahoma hasn't had any issues with West Virginia ever since joining the Big 12, but Oklahoma is kind of in a state of transition, and it is on the road. And West Virginia also knows that they're running out of chances to beat Oklahoma while being in the Big 12. So that's a game to keep your eyes on if you're an Oklahoma fan. Other than that, not a particularly brutal road slate. I mean, at Iowa State can be tricky, but I think Iowa State is on the downswing. So I'm not really worried about that game for Oklahoma. So easily, I can see 10 wins out of this. Probably 11-1 and possibly undefeated. That's the levels that I'm going at. 10 wins is what I'm seeing. Probably can do 11-1 and possibly undefeated. And of course, compete for the Big 12 championship. So y'all let me know in the comments section whether you're an Oklahoma fan or whether you're not an Oklahoma fan. What's your feelings on the Oklahoma Sooners, the new look Oklahoma Sooners, going into the 2022 college football season? That's all I got for you for this show. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you on my next show.